Hello and welcome. You're with us here on Business Today. I'm Abha Bakaya. Here are the day's top stories. After a late sell-off, Nifty ends around 17,500. Sensex falls over 300 points on expiry day. The rupee weakens as traders avoid fresh bets. All eyes on Jackson Hole Summit that begins today. Fed Chair Jerome Powell will provide clues about the pace of future rate hikes and whether the central bank can achieve a soft landing for the economy. 5G services will be launched in India by October 12th. IT Minister Ashwini Vaishnav says government ensuring 5G services will remain affordable. Industry is focusing on both urban as well as rural areas. After prohibiting the export of wheat in May, the government prohibits the export of wheat flour, removes the earlier exemption grant to export wheat flour. All wheat flour export will now need the approval of Interministerial Committee, as the move will help to curb rising prices. Markets reversed their two-day attempt to cut this week's losses amid expiry of August derivatives. Equity gains evaporated in the fag end of the session as investors adjusted their positions amid the F&O expiry. Sensex tumbled 709 points from the day's high and closed at 58,775. The Nifty index too closed 83 points lower at 17,522. Meanwhile, headline indices gained for a second straight series. Nifty gained 593 points in August F&O series. Mid-cap index rose more than 6%. Barring Nifty IT and Nifty Pharma, all sectoral indices gained in this series, with the Nifty Metal Index gaining the most, up nearly 10%. Adani Ports, Bajaj Finance, Cipla, Indosin, Axis Bank, some of the top losers in trade today. On the other hand, Shree Cement, Hindalco, Divi's Lab, HDFC Life and SBI Life were some of the top blue chip gainers. G. Choklinga joining us now, founder Economics Research and Advisory. Mr. Choklingam, expiry day, tons of volatility, and markets have definitely had a bit of a setback this week.
Yes, certainly. I think the most important reason was sudden spurt in the oil price last couple of days. After falling as low as $93 Brent oil, today it picked up above $100. So $100 per barrel becomes a psychological mark for Indian investors or for Indian market and economy. So according to me, that's the major reason, because if oil price has to go up again $120, then this will have a major risk for the markets.
But Mr. Choklingam, what if oil does continue to spike? What's the worst case scenario that we're looking at here? We've also got the Jackson Hole meet coming up, so a whole lot of moving factors.
See, this is what I've been saying for last 10 years quite aggressively, that a mild recession worldwide is too good for India. People would be surprised to know my hypothesis, but it is amply proven to be right, since Lehman crisis. What I mean is that today, again, oil at $100, you are spending more than $120 billion for import of oil. On the other hand, export growth has stagnated in the recent month. Trade deficit is widening and forex reserves are dwindling. So in this scenario, like 2008-9, like in 2016, again in 2020, 3 times oil price crashed and rescued the Indian economy. So the reason for being bullish is that, the oil price has to eventually fall, because there is a fear of recession in US, Europe. Chinese growth has slowed down terribly. So ultimately, my firm view is that oil should fall. Risk is also the same in case, the oil doesn't fall and goes up beyond $120, that will be a major risk. But according to me, that is not a risk. The major risk to the market comes from only single factor in my view. I am of the firm view that if US Fed cuts down the balance sheet drastically, then again the rupee will start depreciating substantially. Then the FIs would stay away or even start selling once again. It's very surprising. The FIs had mentioned that, the US Fed had proposed to cut down the balance sheet by $47.5 billion starting from June month. Every month, $47.5 billion. Starting from September, they wanted to cut it down by $95 billion. But if you look at the actual balance sheet as of last week, there is no reduction in the balance sheet size at all. So that is surprising. So in case US Fed again goes back and starts executing severe reduction in the balance sheet, then the rupee will fall badly. That would be the single biggest risk. Second risk could be any possible war in Taiwan. Again, I have a firm view. I don't think there is a need to worry about any possible war in Taiwan for at least next 1-2 years. The timing is not right for anyone. As I said, Chinese growth has slowed down, and the banking sector has some problem in China, and real estate sector has some problem. So this is not the right time. Even Taiwanese people in the one of the latest surveys, more than 90% prefer to maintain the status quo instead of declaring independence. So therefore, I believe that the risk is also not there. So therefore, single most risk is only any possible reduction in the US Fed balance sheet. Otherwise, to brief it in a minute, India's GDP above 7%, banking credit growth coming back to 14-15%, robust tax collections, monsoon being in surplus, capex plan of government and PSUs, all these give a lot of comfort. And Nifty 1 year forward PE also just around 18-19. So there is a room for a massive rally in the next 6 months, subject to the US Fed balance sheet reduction, and possibly in case I go wrong on oil price, then that also would be a risk. Otherwise, I remain very optimistic on the Indian market.
So sectors, Mr. Chockalingam, then in light of your view, what's looking attractive at these valuations?
Sector-wise, I am extremely bullish on banking sector. There are 2-3 structural changes which have happened in the recent time. One, post-pandemic, COVID pandemic, the credit growth has come down to as low as 5%, historically very low level. Now, in the last fortnight, it has picked up above 14%. It is much above the pre-COVID level, year-on-year credit growth. On the other hand, the NPA cycle has peaked out. And in fact, the PSUs, public sector banks started showing decline in the net NPA in March quarter as well as in the June quarter. So the banking sector should do well. Apart from the large private sector banks, I believe select 1 or 2 public sector banks also would do extremely well. And second, the telecom, mobile telecom, there are 2 large players, and I am very bullish because then, though the tax collections are improving, non-tax revenues are not improving for the government of India except the latest spectrum auction. That is the reason to be bullish on mobile companies, because it is also in the interest of the government to encourage or to allow the mobile companies to revise the tariff upward. Then only the government also can participate in the larger share of revenue from the telecom sector. So therefore, the telecom mobile companies should do extremely well, and then select the small and mid cap stocks again should do well, because despite market meltdown in the last 3-4 months, the number of new retail investors coming into the market, there is no drop in it. In the last 3 months, minimum 4 to 6 lakh new investors every week, they came and registered on BSE platform. So these are the people who look for maximum short-term gain, and therefore they prefer small and mid cap. So select the themes in the small and mid cap space should do very well in the short to medium term.
Right. What about IT, Mr. Chockalingam? Had a bit of a hammering this week. Lots of news as well about variable pay and high rates of attrition and so on and so forth. Do you think they're well cushioned given the last few quarters, or any concerns there?
See, very interesting. Unfortunately, some of the reality, the facts behind the IT sector is not well spread. I can say that confidently, because see, suddenly the IT sector stocks are going down. But the fact is that the IT sector lost its export growth momentum several years back. The export of IT services in dollar term has been in the range of 3 to 6% for more than 3 to 4 years, even before pandemic. Now the market is reacting as if suddenly the growth is an issue. This has been the case even when mid-sized IT stocks had a PE of 30 to 50 and large IT stocks had a 25 to 30. So therefore, this is not a shock to investors. And second, there is a structural change in terms of employee cost. This is the first time I've been tracking this sector for more than 2.5 decades. this is the first time the IT sector is seeing unprecedented level of rise in the employee cost. But let me tell you that this is a whole industry problem. It's not only the large company, even the small companies are facing 50 to 60% rise in employee costs year on year. Now, definitely the industry would overcome this problem because collectively they can address this. And when they collectively address this, they would be able to succeed because again, 70 to 80% of the exports are concentrated in the hands of just 5-6 players. So it is easy. It's almost like an oligopolistic market. If you take not number of players, but if you take the contribution to the total revenue, that just from 5 to 6 players. So they would be able to manage. And third, the market gets scared whenever NASDAQ stocks, get beaten down. I find it very funny because the business profile of stocks listed on NASDAQ and IT services companies in India completely different. They focus more on products. Here we focus on IT services. And so therefore, there is no need to worry about what's happening on NASDAQ. And also, the reason given on NASDAQ is that the present value of the future cash flow would come down because our interest rate is rising. That's one of the reasons there. But here, those concerns are not there because all these IT companies are returning money at least once in 2 years in terms of buyback. So there is no question of worrying too much about the real value of cash flow in the future. I believe the correction is amazing. Some of the stocks have corrected even 40% within the large cap IT space. I believe this is a golden opportunity to buy IT stocks.
All right, Mr. Chokalingam, thanks so much for joining us and taking us through all of those details on the markets. Well, let's talk about global markets. The 45th Jackson Hole Economic Policy Symposium is set to be held to date until the 27th of August. What's the theme this year? What's Dalal Street watching out for? Sakshi Batra brings us all those details.
Well, all eyes are on the Jackson Hole Economic Policy Symposium 2022 that starts today in Wyoming in US and will be on until 3 days. The first in-person conference that is happening post the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, why is this symposium important is because this is US Federal Reserve's annual meeting and the biggest names, including central bankers, finance ministers, academics, and also financial market participants from across the world will meet at this event to discuss the burning economic and financial issues, including the rising prices. Now, this time, the most awaited event is the Federal Chairman Jerome Powell's speech on Friday, in which he is expected to shine some light on the future policy moves of US Federal Reserve. Now, this year's theme will also explore the emergence of economic constraints during the pandemic and how supply considerations have actually returned to center stage. So what will the stock markets really be watching out for in this symposium? Well, the US markets definitely closed higher ahead of the meet, and now they will be searching for clues about where the Fed might head next its attempt to tame the 4-decade high inflation. And also, is the Fed going to really slow down the pace of rate hikes or actually continue ahead with the same rate of hawkishness as the last few policies? Also, what comments does Jerome Powell really make on growth and on inflation? Are there any signs of recession that he hints at as well? Since we are now in a downturn and talks of a looming recession are there, the symposium will definitely be a big landmark event and a game changer given the changing economic environment and the global economies that are experiencing the pain of the war, the inflation, the rising interest rates, and the post-pandemic effects as well.
Thank you for that, Sakshi. It's raining money at IITs. Companies from various sectors are making their way to IIT campuses with eye-popping remunerations. We bring you a look at IIT's pre-placement season, which has started with a bang.
Recruiters' paradise, the Indian Institute of Technology are yet to kick off their placement season. But the companies are already thronging to the premier institutes. While there are still 3 months for placements to commence, IITs are seeing a 15 to 75% increase in pre-placement offers. Companies are offering salaries in the range of 91.2 lakh to 1.2 crore rupees. Despite concerns around IT hiring slowing down, it's the IT and software, core engineering and technology sectors, which are most bullish ones on pre-placement offers. Amazon, Microsoft, Adobe, Salesforce, Qualcomm, Walmart and Boston Consulting Group are some which have already made offers. With the pre-placement offers gathering steam, a robust hiring scenario for the class of 2023 is imminent. IIT Madras has seen a 33% jump in PPOs from last year. IIT Guwahati too has surpassed last year's pre-placement offers, seeing a 1.65% increase so far. In the run-up to the placement season, IIT BHU has received 203 offers till now from the likes of Oracle, Axis Bank and Flipkart. Are you wondering why companies are thronging to IITs? Well, their alumni are taking the tech world by storm with the likes of Parag Agarwal, Sundar Pichai at the helm of big tech giants. The IITians have also played a major role in India's tech story with the likes of Sachin Bansal and Dipinder Goyal leading the charge. Not only have IITs churned out tech titans, but also policymakers and corporate leaders who are making India proud. Well, it's just the beginning of the hiring season at India's premier colleges. And not only IITs, students at other colleges in India too are looking forward to good pay packets. But will recession fears play spoilsport? Bureau Report, Business Today Television.
With the aim to disinvest its stake in IDBI in FY23, the government is working on a war footing. According to sources, the expression of interest is likely in September. The centre and LIC may dilute close to 65% stake in IDBI if the RBI permits. Karishma Sudani joins us with more on this. Karishma, what's the progress of the disinvestment plan?
Well, the progress is, Abha, that government is expecting a green signal from the inter-ministerial group, that is the IMG, which is currently, in fact, been holding meetings on IDBI. Today was also the day that a meeting was held. Post this, it goes to the core group of disinvestment and, of course, to the major ministerial panel, which will actually clear the disinvestment before government launches the process of expression of interest. Now, we're being told that currently the drafting for expression of interest is going on, but meanwhile, government has received a green signal from RBI on the kind of requests it has put. In fact, RBI, under its emergency provisions, has granted IDBI certain relaxations on consortium participation and has made certain relaxations on the fit and proper criteria that could push off the disinvestment process. Meanwhile, we're also being told that government sees no major concerns when it comes to the process and is hoping that by third week of September, they'll be able to launch and float the EOI. Meanwhile, government and LIC, which hold almost close to 93% share, could dilute around 65% of their stake in IDBI in one go.
Karishma, thanks so much for joining us with that. We're going to take a very quick break here on the show. Back in just a moment.
कभी कभी खुशी के लिए कुछ ज्यादा नहीं, एक अनजान दोस्त ही काफी है। Ebix कैश हर खुशी के लिए काफी है।
मैडम जी, वो सारे पैसे लेके भाग गए और मेरा वड़ा पाव भी ले गए।
दिखाते हैं इनको।
मोटा वड़ा पाव? डीलर, निकाल दे इसके बाद।
पंक्चर के बाद भी इससे हवा नहीं निकलेगी, क्योंकि ये है जेके पंक्चर गार्ड टायर, जो कील लगने के बाद भी होता है हील। जेके पंक्चर गार्ड टायर, अब हवा नहीं निकलेगी।
कभी कभी खुशी के लिए कुछ ज्यादा नहीं, एक अनजान दोस्त ही काफी है। Ebix कैश हर खुशी के लिए काफी है।
Attic fittings make your furniture work beautifully. German quality you can trust.
कभी कभी खुशी के लिए कुछ ज्यादा नहीं, एक अनजान दोस्त ही काफी है। Ebix कैश हर खुशी के लिए काफी है।
Welcome back. It's been over 180 days since Russia invaded Ukraine and a full-blown war followed suit. With each missile strike, burst of gunfire, precious lives have been lost. Tens of thousands of civilians have lost their lives and many armed personnel have been killed in battle. The war also has consequences not just for the parties involved but also the whole world. Ukraine is on life support and the rest of the world is dealing with acute food shortages, skyrocketing inflation. What has been the cost of Russia's war in Ukraine? Take a look.
Well, that's right. 6 months ago, Russia launched a full-scale invasion of the neighboring country, Ukraine. Over the course of the last 6 months, the consequences have been not just for the parties involved, but also for the whole wide world. Now, what we've seen that there has been an irreversible impact on human lives on both sides, and the war has also disrupted the global distribution of food, fuel, leading to multiple other problems. And here's what the war has cost us so far. Almost 6,000 Ukrainian civilians have lost lives. About 9,000 Ukrainian soldiers have been killed. The number of refugees has also surpassed over 6.6 million. Over 41 million Ukrainians have been ejected from their homes, and over 25,000 Russian soldiers have also died. The destruction has also cost Ukraine at $113.5 billion so far. Ukraine will also need more than $200 billion to really rebuild its economy. The government needs $5 billion a month to keep their economy running. Ukrainian GDP is set to collapse by 45% in 2022. Now, how has the global GDP growth been impacted because of this war? The IMF has predicted that global growth would actually slow to 2.6% in 2022 and 2% in 2023. That a recession is likely in Europe due to the surge in gas prices and its impending shortage. Following Russia's invasion of Ukraine, global oil prices soared to record highs that were not seen since 2008. Gas prices for wholesale in Europe had increased after Russia had stopped sending gas through the Nord Stream 1 pipeline to Germany. Now, according to Goldman Sachs, which is a research firm and a brokerage firm, a complete cutoff of gas would actually cause a recession in the Euro region, with significant contractions in both Germany and Italy as well. And there could be ripple effects that will follow on into the other economies as well. There are expectations that Europe and US would end up with near 0% growth in the following years. And that's been the kind of impact that we've seen of this war.
Thanks for that, Sakshi. The Supreme Court agreed to hear a plea seeking a review of its verdict that upheld the Enforcement Directorate's powers under the Prevention of Money Laundering Act. The court will review the verdict on two specific issues: sharing the enforcement case information report and reversal of the presumption of innocence. Let's go across to Anisha Bathur for more on this.
Chief Justice of India N.V. Ramana, while hearing the matter in open court, has said that two issues prima facie look like they need a review. The Chief Justice has suggested that the court can relook into two aspects of the entire situation. One, that the ECIR is not given to the accused, which is something that the previous judgment had upheld. Secondly, the presumption of innocence that is part of the normal criminal jurisprudence is reversed in the PMLA. That means that in a normal case, the prosecution has to prove that the accused is in fact guilty, but if somebody is accused in a PMLA case, it is up to them to prove that the prosecution is wrong and they are in fact innocent. This is something that the court has agreed to hear at the moment. The hearing in this matter will be now after 4 weeks. The Chief Justice N.V. Ramana also agreed with this and said that the scope of a review is limited, and that is why at the moment we are agreeing to hear these two aspects and issuing notice. The court will now hear the matter after 4 weeks.
And as India celebrates and reflects on its achievements in 75 years of independence, it is time to take forward the trajectory of the economy's phenomenal growth, create the right policies and introduce the right levers to achieve greater heights. To chart the growth path of the next 25 years and achieve global leadership position for the Indian economy, Business Today presents the India at 100 Economy Summit, Achieving Global Leadership. Under this banner, top leaders from the political, administrative and corporate spheres come together to discuss, debate and help create a framework of sustained growth for India over the next 25 years. Watch the day-long coverage live on Business Today YouTube, Twitter, Facebook and our website tomorrow 11 a.m. onwards.
Where will the next 25 years take us? How can India achieve global leadership? The country's top policymakers: Nitin Gadkari, Jyotiraditya Scindia, Ashwini Vaishnaw, R.K. Singh, Dharmendra Pradhan. The biggest names of corporate India: Sunil Bharti Mittal, C.P. Gurnani, Anant Maheshwari, Shoma Mandal, and Ganapathy Subramaniam at the Big Business Today India at 100 Economy Summit, Friday 26th of August, live on businesstoday.in.
कभी कभी खुशी के लिए कुछ ज्यादा नहीं, एक अनजान दोस्त ही काफी है। एबिक्स कैश हर खुशी के लिए काफी है।
अंदर से फिट रहेगा तभी टिका रहेगा, क्रीज पर और लाइफ में। जैसे आप। अच्छा दादा, ये घर को जंग फ्री बनाने के लिए क्या मैजिक चाहिए? मैजिक नहीं, लॉजिक चाहिए। घर को जंग फ्री बनाता है कैप्टन रस का। इसका अनोखा फ्यूजन बॉन्डेड इपोक्सी कोटिंग टीएमटी को जंग नहीं पकड़ने देता। कैप्टन रस का जंग फ्री टीएमटी। कैप्टन और कैप्टन का घर दोनों बने लंबी इनिंग्स के लिए।
The rich and distinct aroma from our freshly roasted coffee beans is magical. We didn't want this magic to escape, so we freeze-dried it. Freeze-dried coffee from Continental. Continental Coffee.
कभी कभी खुशी के लिए कुछ ज्यादा नहीं, एक अनजान दोस्त ही काफी है। एबिक्स कैश हर खुशी के लिए काफी है।
जनता में रोष, प्रशासन खामोश, रानी राज या जंगल राज। रानी को घेरने का ये अच्छा मौका है।
जब जब आपको लगता है कि आप बिहार को समझ गए हैं, बिहार आपको झटका देता है।
परंपरा बनता ही है एक दिन टूटने के लिए, और हम तो बदनाम हैं उसको तोड़ने के लिए।
कभी कभी खुशी के लिए कुछ ज्यादा नहीं, एक अनजान दोस्त ही काफी है। एबिक्स कैश हर खुशी के लिए काफी है।
Hello and welcome. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Pooja Shali. Let's begin first with the headlines. Suspended BJP Neta T. Raja Singh arrested second time in 3 days over the Prophet Muhammad remark, accusing the KCR government of manufacturing controversy. Owaisi also meanwhile condemning the Sartan se Juda beheading sloganeering, but manages to secure release of his own Neta. Relief for Centre in the Pegasus Snoopgate case. Supreme Court panel says there is no evidence of spyware in the 29 phones that were examined. BJP claims vindication, demands an apology also from Rahul Gandhi. Apex Court issues a notice to the centre and Gujarat government for granting remission to Bilkis Bano's rapists. 11 convicts made party in the case. Gandhigiri over Delhi liquor gate scandal. Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal visiting Rajghat. BJP says Bewadi Sarkar is using Gandhi as a shield to deflect nation. Election Commission recommends Hemant Soren's disqualification as an MLA for awarding the mining contract to himself. Soren cries foul, says BJP headquarters are controlling the central agencies. It's a big twist in the BJP Neta and actor Sonali Phogat's death case. Autopsy report mentions multiple blunt force injuries on her body. Goa police registered a murder. Her personal assistant is now being questioned by the cops. As communal tensions are simmering in the Hyderabad city, Asaduddin Owaisi, who's the AIMIM chief and also Hyderabad Member of Parliament, has made a call for peace in Hyderabad. He has said, observe peace after the Friday prayers, which remember is tomorrow. He's also added that Hyderabad is a peaceful city and people must ensure that peace remains in the city of Hyderabad. So at this point, Asaduddin Owaisi has gone ahead and made a call for peace.